Okay, so back to more like cozy time, cozy girl book recap. So it's like basically I'm using this as a way of just recounting what happened so that I remember the story. And today this video is about Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the third book in ACOTAR series, and it basically jumps up off the back of what happened at the conclusion of The Court of Mist and Fury, which is obviously the best book of the series. So to be honest, I don't fully always remember what happens, but this is just a brief recap anyway. It's not like a full in detail, in depth, like this person's this person's this person this, although sometimes I start leading into all of that because it's just so long and so complicated. But basically we've just start off where the story ended in a court of Mist and Fury, and basically Feyre lies and says that Rhysand has kidnapped and tortured her, and that's why she was in the Night Court. But she's basically telling Tamlin and Lucien that, like, don't worry, like, I'm gonna come back with you, like, like, she's hiding the fact from them, but really she's going back as revenge to figure out what's going on, because they've kind of stabbed them in the back. So previously Feyre had cancelled her engagement with Tamlin because he was like controlling and stuff like that, and then she found out that Rhysand was actually her true love and her mate and la 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 la. And then we had the whole thing with like them trying to take down Hybern and the Cauldron, but then Hybern puts Elaine and Nesta, who are Feyre's sisters, who were human, into the Cauldron, and now they're High Fae, and it's this whole thing. But they've been taken to the Night Court, and Feyre's plan now is basically to manipulate the Spring Court and weaken Tamlin. So basically King Hybern, I say basically too often, King Hybern sends two of his emissaries, which are these like two weird twin people, along with Jurian, who is a human warrior with like one eye, who was resurrected using the Cauldron's power, back to the Spring Court to formalise the alliance that Tamlin has now formed with them. And he also wants to examine the wall, not him himself, but he wants his people to examine the wall that separates the fairies from the human. But Feyre in this whole thing is trying to like take things down, like she's trying to find out what everybody knows, like she's trying to see, like, Ianthe, this high priestess, is trying to manipulate everything to like she gets what she wants. So she's like she's on edge with her. She wants to know what Tamlin knows, like what Hybern and his people are doing. Then so when Hybern's people are like, oh, I want to go and examine the wall, she's like, I'll go, and then she goes with Lucien. And then on the third of these trips, so they go a couple of times, but on the third time Tamlin and Ianthe go, and by this point I think that Feyre thinks that she's got enough information, she can cut her losses now and she can fly back north to Rhysand. But before she does, she wants to punish Ianthe, because she saw Ianthe as like basically essentially sexually assaulting Lucien, and so she's like but then those two like weird twins have actually been poisoning Feyre and Lucien with Faebane, so it means that they don't, like, their powers are blocked. But somehow Feyre and Lucien managed to kill the twins. At this point Lucien, who is actually mate bonded with Elaine, who is Feyre's sister, decides to go with Feyre to the Night Court, but it's really difficult because they don't have any magic, so they can't win her, which is like this like weird like not projection, like this weird like travelling thing that they do, like teleportation basically. But they decided to move through the Autumn Court, which is ruled by Lucien's family, and they've betrayed him in the past because he was in love with this girl, but I don't think they liked her. I think she might not have been High Fae, she might have been a lesser Fae, she's like basically a peasant person, and I think they killed her. That's why he doesn't really like communicate with them like that. But they manage to escape from there and escape into the Winter Court, but then they still get caught by Lucien's brothers, but now in the Winter Court. But then Asriel and Cassian, who are from Rhysand's inner circle, manage to come in and rescue them, and then fly them all the way back to Valeris, and they're all reunited. And then she also can see her sisters, but then when she does, like, Nesta's obviously got this really odd attitude that she always has, but Elaine is like really weakened and she's like acting super cray-cray, and so she's like to Lucian, this is Feyre by the way, she's like, you can stay in Valeris, but I just don't think you should see Elaine right now because she's not doing so well, and I don't think you like basically telling her more about the mating situation is just going to be way too much for her. And then she comes back, and she just like tells them about all the intel that she's gathered. A point to note, which is separate from like to note from the previous book, is that when she was going to the Night Court and returning back to the Spring Court at the start of a Court of Mist and Fury, Tamlin would like immediately start interrogating her about what she knew, but Rhysand kind of does the opposite, and he's like, I don't want to know anything until I know that like you're fine and just want to be with you, la la la. Anyway, then they have to do this whole like big meeting thing with like all the High Lords, and that's what Rhysand decides, and they're gonna make some like weird alliance, and then Feyre goes to meet the Bone Carver dude again, and she finds out that the Bone Carver is actually like not trying to escape, like he's happy to be in prison because he's scared of his older, more powerful sibling, the Weaver, so kind of hiding from the Weaver. But what he does want is this mirror called the Ouroboros, which is held in the Court of Nightmares. So now they have to go to the Court of Nightmares, and the Court of Nightmares is like basically overseen or controlled by Morrigan's dad, Keir, who she doesn't have a very good relationship with, but basically they need to go to him to ask if they can use his people to obtain the mirror. He's like, okay, whatever, as long as we're allowed to form an alliance with Eris, who's going to be the future High Lord of the Autumn Court, as well as you need to let some of the Night Court people come to Valeris. So Feyre's like, okay. So when she asks for the mirror, Keir's like, okay, but you do know that it can only be taken by someone who's going to look into it, and people who've looked into it like go like crazy. Anyway, Morgan is not happy by this whole thing because she was supposed to be engaged, or she was engaged to Eris, but then she didn't want to be because it was like a contract marriage essentially, and then so she decided like, oh, I'm gonna just like go and sleep with someone else, and then so they were like, oh, we don't want you anymore, and so the engagement gets cancelled, and then Morgan is like abandoned by her father. I think worse things happen, to be honest. I just think I must have blocked them out of my memory because I just don't really remember what the hell happens, but she's like, okay, fine, if you have to make this weird tactical alliance, then it is what it is. We also find out that Amryn is actually an ancient being from another world, and she's bound herself to the form of a fairy so that she can escape prison, and she basically tells Feyre that you can only free the Carver if the Carver does the same thing and decides that the Carver bonds to like a weaker form. But then Feyre like shapeshifts and she grows wings, and then she gets lessons from Azriel how to fly, she gets lessons from Cassian on combat. Amryn's training Nesta because they think that Nesta has this like weird mysterious power that can like fix the holes in the walls, at least I think that's what they're hoping. And this whole time they're conducting research in one of the libraries in one of the palaces that's called the House of Wind, and Feyre and Nesta are attacked by two like Highburn people, and they basically find out that Highburn wants to abduct Nesta because he believes that Nesta took some of the power from the cauldron, and so the cauldron is weaker, and basically he wants the power back. But Feyre makes a deal with the monster who lives in the pit at the library called the Braxis, and the Braxis attacks the two attackers, and then Rhysand kills them. And we also find out that Elaine's like weird ramblings aren't actually just weird ramblings, but she's actually a seer, and she's accurately like predicting a lot of stuff. Like she's predicting an attack, and like she's getting all this stuff. So then they believe her prophecies, and Lucian volunteers to travel to the continent, which is where more humans live, to find the human queen who is cursed by the others, to see if she will be the ally that Elaine thinks that she'll be. But before they can have the meeting with all the High Lords, the Summer Court gets attacked, and the High Lord of the Summer Court, Tarquin, he basically doesn't really like Rhysand and Feyre because they stole the Book of Breathing from him, but they don't really care. They're like, hun, you're under attack, forget your attention for a second, we're gonna help you. And so they go in and they help, and then they have that meeting and they make weird alliances. But guess who shows up? Boo-hoo, Tamlin shows up, and he's like insulting Feyre and Rhysand and doing all this randomness. And then he's also like, your huns, like, I'm a double agent, like, I'm just pretending to be on Highburn's side so that I can get information. Yeah, but then by the end of the meeting, the group is shooketh because the King of Highburn uses the cauldron to destroy the wall, and so now he can begin attacking the human people. So then Feyre has to make yet another deal with the Braxes to see if the Braxes will help them in the war. And then Elaine has this whole plan to protect the humans because her former human fiance, his like estate, or his family's estate, is like this like fortified thing, and so they have to go and like try and persuade them. So then they like disguise Elaine as like a human person, but they're like, hun, we know that you're a fairy. So she feels extremely rejected, but they still help. And then we also find out that Jurian is also a double agent. There's double agents everywhere, I swear to God. And then Jurian tells them what to do, and they counter the second assault on the Summer Court, but they still have to fight because now the fight moves into the Winter Court. So then Feyre's like, what do I need to do? I need to find another Suriel, because the Suriel always has the answer. All these people have answers. Suriel, Bonecarver, they're all like giving answers. So then they go, and then the Suriel tells Feyre that Nesta can locate the cauldron because she's got a connection, and she also says that the book has the Book of Breathing has, which Amren has the answer to how to defeat Highburn. But then Ianthe comes and she kills Suriel and starts like chasing around Feyre, but then Feyre leads her to the cottage of the Weaver, who basically kills, about time to be honest, Ianthe, and consumes her. Then Rhysand goes back to the camp where they've been fighting, but so basically they've all defeated Highburn, but like just about, and like Cassian is like super injured, and then Nesta uses her powers to locate the cauldron, but we then find out that yeah, they did defeat that part of the army, but Highburn's got this whole other part of the army which he's like hiding. But then the cauldron also senses Nesta, so it's like a two-way thing, and the cauldron lures Elaine and takes her to the Highburn camp. So then Feyre makes this desperate attempt, and she disguises herself as Ianthe and travels with Azriel to Highburn's camp, where they save Elaine and then escape because of Tamlin's help, because he flies off, but then he's exposed that he's not actually on Highburn's side to Highburn, so again, no longer a double agent. And then Feyre basically tells all the High Lords like, yo, get your act together, we need to winnow all these humans out of Highburn's path of destruction, so that's what they have to do. And then they've got all the, you gotta remember, there's, first of all, I've never understood this like whole army business, but there's loads of armies. The Prithian army, the Braxis, the Carver, the Weaver, Jurian and his human army, and then you've got Tamlin's army from the Spring Court, and Baron's army from the what court is he? Autumn Court. And then like the battle's not doing so well, and then all of a sudden Prince Dracon and Miriam, who everybody believed was dead, their story is a bit confusing, but just know that they're dead, and it has something to do with why Jurian was like against everything, and it was all a misunderstanding in the end, arrive with more reinforcements. They also arrive with Queen Vassa, who is the one that Lucian went to go and look for, and Feyre's dad. And then Amren's basically learnt from the Book of the Breathing, because that's what she's been trying to decode this whole time, that those that have a connection with the cauldron can like withstand the power if they touch it. And so Feyre goes to the cauldron, and Nesta is basically going to be bait, because she like Hyben wants her, so she's just going to be the bait. And then Hyben kills the Weaver and tries to get Nesta. And then Feyre puts her hand on the cauldron, but then she's found out that Amren's actually deceived her and connected to the cauldron herself. And then basically Feyre is seeing everything that's happening on the battlefield, and she's hoping to like do something, but then I think King Hyben uses her dad as a shield and snaps his neck, and then he's going to kill Nesta and Cassian, but then Elaine manages to stab him in the neck, and then Nesta like finishes it off with a little decapitation. And then Feyre returns to her body and accuses Amren of deceiving her, but then Amren's like, hun, the spell's not designed to destroy the cauldron, but basically she needed to unbind herself from her fairy form to unleash her full power. And so that's what Feyre does. Feyre recites a spell that unbinds Amren, and she jumps into the cauldron, and then she emerges this like weird like glowy thing, and she destroys like everything else. But this causes the cauldron to crack, and then basically the whole world, it could be apocalyptic, and the whole world could like die or something. And then Feyre serves as like a conduit, and she channels Rhysand's magical power into the cauldron and like seals the crack, but then this kills Rhysand because she's basically drained the power. And then she's like Feyre's like, no, you guys saved me, to the other High Lords, like, please help and bring him back to life, la la la. And so basically all of the other High Lords, including Tamlin, give like this drop of something to Rhysand, and he comes back to life. And Amren also comes back to life, but she is now in full fairy form, and she doesn't have any of her previous powers. And then Feyre and her sisters bury their father because obviously he died. And then Feyre meets Miriam and Dracon properly, and then they hold this meeting with all the lords, and all of that, and basically they decide to renegotiate the treaty between the humans and the fairies. And then Vassa also decides that, or not Vassa, Vassa asks to break the curse that binds her to the death god, and then Feyre and her friends return to Valaris and celebrate, la la la, and it's all life with optimism. Anyway, that was everything. So okay, bye.